most of the stuff, if you go back and look at most of the stuff, sorry for this because I'm going to end up broke and I'm going to end up frustrated. Car enthusiast thing, isn't it? It's you. If I wanted just a good car that handled well and performed well, I'll just get a Camry, which outperforms any car that I grew up on.
Wompity womp womp womp. George is look. I'm wearing a target on my chest right now. So
See, and this is a thing that I've spoken to Connor about. The creative friction that makes up today's bad idea is Connor wants to do highbrow documentary stuff, and I want to make dick jokes.
Oh, cool.
so
Oh.
so we land in the middle.
So we
And
land
this
in
is
the
why
middle.
I already like both of you. So
I'm going into the day thinking that this is in my dick joke glory.
Yeah.
And, 'cause after the thoughtful cerebral nature of last week's or last
Oh, yeah.
episode, I feel like this one's going to be more freewheeling and jokey.
gotcha.
So
Good. Well, we had a professor, like a real bona fide member of academia, so it's to be expected. Professor Patrick Frawley of Bridgeport University.
Okay. And what was his raison d'etre?
He's a car guy living in Manhattan,
Oh, so
and who likes having motorcycles stolen by the frequency he keeps doing it. So that's
Yeah.
what kept it interesting.
he used to be a semi-professional auto writer, and he is a uh, Instagram buddy. And I thought that the idea of trying to be a car guy living on Manhattan was insane enough to deserve a conversation.
okay, I'm a bookend. I guess that's what you're saying, Connors. I'm a bookend of the conversation.
I didn't put that label in there. You did that all by yourself. You didn't need any help from me on that one.
Call it like I see it, coach.
All right. We doing this? All right.
We're doing this.
We doing this. All right. Welcome to today's Bad Idea, episode 5. Significant number 5s. We've got 5 lugs, 5 cylinders, Jackson 5. Kyle Larson drove the number 5 Hendrick Motorsports in 2021. I'm going to pretend for half a second I know anything about NASCAR, which I don't, which is why George gives me crap, rightly so. Today I'm with the one and only Mr. George Edward Jones. Our gathering today we have Matt Black. Matt is a satirist, death merchant, veteran, and relapsed car guy, which could go either way by the end of this conversation. We'll explain an incident that happened about a month ago where I tried to bring him back to the fold, which had mixed results, I would say.
No, you definitely firmed up some opinions.
Okay. We'll get to that. I'll kick this off a little bit with a story. Matt and I kind of lost connection, and so we can reconnect some years back, just before the pandemic. It was one of those kind of drinks after work on a Friday evening. Matt lives close to Chinatown here in Boston, and I hadn't met his better half, I would suggest, before. I go in the bar, and Matt barely acknowledges me and introduces me to his wife, and he's intent on his phone like a 6-year-old on Christmas morning, and he goes, I need a song, any song, something crazy. I went, Rammstein, Du hast. He goes, great. Goes back. I chat with his wife. I order a drink from the bartender. He goes, I need another song. Ace of Spades, Motorhead. Yeah. And you mumbled something about fucking Jennifer Houston. Still don't know what the hell you're doing, but drink arrives. And then you admit to me that actually what you were doing was there's a bar around the corner in the theater district called the Tam. And what you were doing actually was messing with their playlist. Using touchscreens to completely fuck up their playlist. And whatever groove they were not having at that moment was going out the window. And that will kind of give you a sense of how the level of mischief that typically happens when Matt and I get together.
Yes.
I have a similar story. My wife's office is probably about 80% woman, and at the time it was probably, of those 80% women, probably 90% of them were fresh college graduates, and they had a softball team. We would go and eat at the bar across the street from her office before softball games, and this was, I don't know, 15 years ago, and they were all into whatever the radio hits of the 15 years ago, and they had a jukebox, and they put on whatever, and they'd be like, "Yay, yay!" And one day, my wife and I got in there early, and so yeah, I put on the jukebox playlist the entirety of Slayer's "Rain in Blood."
Were you invited back by chance?
Oh, for a while, I almost got
Gotcha.
kicked out because I was I was heckling my own team, but
And you're still
Oh.
married.
Oh,
I gotta
that's
meet Denise
because it's
Lawrence.
funny. That's what it is. Above all, that's funny.
I was well. One, I hated their music, but two, it was funny. So that worked out. Yeah.
Set
So
chapter.
when I know Connor has, things he wants to talk about and everything. Me, I just want to hear all the embarrassing Connor stories. That's all I'm here for.
Cracked ribs, maybe?
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, that's basically how we kind of started talking. I think this guy's pretty funny. He's in one of the corner cubs. I'm down the row in the cubicle farm, working at this agency, and yeah, you could tell it. I mean, because it was more your experience than mine.
Well, we're a few days in, and I show up to work one day with cracked ribs. And if you've ever had cracked ribs, the name of the game is not allowing your chest to expand or compress. It shouldn't happen at all, if all possible. And so things like sneezing and coughing become excruciatingly painful.
No laughing, no coughing.
Laughter.
Yeah.
Matt's not funny, as you've already gained in the first 10 minutes of this conversation,
But
he enjoyed to a great deal, to the point where I was in so much pain and had tears rolling down my face at the same time over the dumbest shit.
Oh yeah. Oh, we did talk about a bunch of dumb shit. I mean, you make a new friend. You're like, that's funny, haha. You try to ingratiate yourself to the other person, but I guess the timing was just not good for.
Well, that's all comedy, isn't it? That's what comedy's all about, timing. So
pain.
The timing was good for one of us.
Yeah. Oh, that's what comedy is pain plus time, and I just couldn't tell time very well. So time's now.
As somebody named George Jones, who grew up in Alabama, being named Matt Black kind of leads itself to all of the comments. From what I got from Connor, at some point you were a car guy, but he might have scared it out of you now.
No. Which actually, thank you for the segue, George, because you get to guess his first car, and we'll see how this goes.
Oh Lord, first car. This has become a theme now.
Yeah, theme now.
Yeah.
George
it's a good
guesses
idea.
the first
George,
car.
it's a good idea. It's a good idea. It's funny, but you're not going to get it. I don't think you're going to get it.
Well, and I think, to be fair, Matt, you've kind of prepared a couple of things that are going to put him off the scent. Is a polite way of putting it.
Yes.
I get
he gets 3 guesses.
Okay.
The first one is usually, the first one's blind, and it's just coming out of the nowhere. Looking at you, you're roughly our age. So
56.
For the first
I'll give
guess
you your
early in the process. I like the confidence here. He's going for the first one. All right.
I'm going for the first one. I'm going for the first one because it's gonna be wrong. So it doesn't matter when I have it. So 56. So that puts you in firmly
67
in
hard top.
80 late 70s, early 80s shitbox territory. Oh yeah, no, I'm married to one of you. I understand. Chevette.
Strike one.
Okay.
Matt, those formative car years. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York, central upstate New York, about an hour south of Syracuse, in corn and cow country, which is, nobody knows that about New York, but it's rural. It's got a good chunk that's rural, in a town of about 1,000 on a school day. And my father was the only funeral director in town. And he did funerals for all the surrounding towns. So I'm not going to say, are we talking about the first car I owned or the first car I drove?
Well, how'd you learn to drive?
On a hearse. Oh, well, the station wagon most likely was the probably first one. But, the only time I got to practice anything was Dad said, go wash the hearse for a funeral. And I would drive it up to the local car wash. As like the only time I got to take anything out was to take out this big, 78 Cadillac Seville conversion from Superior Coach, gold, like powder gold and black top, gorgeous car. But had the suspension, the air suspension on the thing, amazing. But I got to take that one out till big old engine on there. It'll talk to you. So, but that between the hearse and the station wagon, which in a small town, the station wagon is the alternate hearse. In Central New York, things get cold, so you need a backup hearse in case the big beast, the show beast, doesn't start. So,
did you crash one of them?
I dinged one. I backed into the neighbor's garage, and the Cadillacs were built well enough to where I did put a tiny scrape in the, they have that football-shaped taillights on the 70s, the DeVille stretch, but that took out a chunk of Mrs. Churchill's corner of her garage. Like she had like some stucco that just went dink. So I wouldn't say it was.
I know some people who have had some weird first cars they learned on experiences. You're the only hearse. I've met like I know people who learned on my cousin learned on her family's conversion van. That's a pretty large one. I feel like my wife her family had an LTD.
Those are pretty big.
Those are pretty big. Are pretty big. My grandfather had a deuce and a quarter, and a couple of my cousins learned in a deuce and a quarter. I don't know, Connor, if you're familiar with the deuce.
Mm-hmm.
The Buick Electra 225, the deuce and a quarter. It was the 225 because it was 225 inches long. You know what else is 225 inches long? 225 and a half inches is a Tahoe XL. The deuce and a quarter was a coupe.
There's basically an aircraft carrier for the bonnet right there. The whole hood. You can land a plane on the hood.
Yeah. So I mean, I had a theory, and a bunch of people have corroborated this with me. Is like Europe got small, good handling cars because everything's so packed together. Like an 11-hour drive in Europe is 4 countries. We have nothing but space. So there was nothing to constrain designers from not going as stupidly large as possible. And this is how you end up with a coupe the size of what is today one of the largest vehicles on the road.
Monstrous.
A couple of my cousins learned how to drive in the deuce.
So that obviously leads to, like, if you're picking up a girlfriend, going to her house, whatever happens to be going on, like, which car do you take?
Well, me, the choice was easy. It always had a lot of room in the back. Station wagon.
Station wagon is the way to go.
You happy now, George?
No, I'm just trying to in my head. I see, young Matt, all fresh faced, showing up to the door. Mrs. Whoever, I'm here to pick up what? And she comes out, freshly shined hearse, in front of the house. It's like, hi.
I gotta make room. Those are last week's flowers.
God, if I could have really gone emo at that point, but that would have been a good thing. It's like, hey, I'm here to pick up your daughter. Rudy.
Yes, had on your black hair and your mascara, your full on Robert Smith look, just
it would have been really gutsy to sport that in a town of a when everybody else will come to school smelling like the barn. Literally coming to school smelling like the barn. So small town. But no, so you got the backstory. Have you any idea what my first car was? And I didn't buy it till I was 19.
What are you doing? A second one?
Yeah.
19. Oh, you bought it at 19.
Yes.
Uh, were you actually in college at this point, or were you one of those? Were you working
I was in the Air Force at that
in
time.
the Air Force at that time?
Yeah.
Oh, that actually makes it
Oh.
harder.
Because it takes it. He's not going to get this. I'll give you.
No.
I'll give you 10 questions.
Well, and it's because
Wow.
I have a decent number of members of my family who are military folks, and there's a 50-50 chance that your first car was bought right before you deployed out to some random place in the world, or bought in some random place in the world if you're in the military. So, like my uncle Danny had, oh, I want to say it was a Nova that basically sat in the driveway for, you know, 11 months out of the year, except when he was on leave and would come back and drive it around. But then my uncle Pokey bought a E30 in Germany because that's where he was stationed for forever, and that followed him around the world.
Yes, as they do. I've seen so many guys do that. I was in the Strategic Air Command in
Yeah.
Washington State for most of my 4 years in.
Oh well, then you're in Washington State. You're gonna want something Washington-y,
Uh,
uh
Washington. I want a T-shirt with that on.
Washington-y,
it's a
uh
whole thing up there.
Yeah.
Seattle, Spokane. It's Washington
Subaru GL.
straight to.
Oh, that was a solid guess. Come on, that was a solid
At
guess.
that point, no, it was. We're talking like 86.
86. So that probably would have been more a handful of brats showing up, but not really the full-on Subaru. Yeah.
God, the
Here's
Browns
what
were
I'm gonna suggest. Let him, George, hang back a little bit on the guesses,
Yeah.
and let's get deeper into this conversation. And if you want to ask some other probing, by all means. But you've got one more shot at this, so I want to
I
make sure.
do.
I want to give you a solid tee up on it. Fair?
I hate this bit so much.
I will assist you as much as I can.
Oh,
Is that
So-
so? Matt, what's your absolute earliest memory of anything that's got a vehicle attached to it in some shape or form that you recall?
It's usually the back of a station wagon because I grew up in a funeral home family. And it's usually just being bounced around in the back of a station wagon without, as we did back then, no seatbelts, groceries on either side, and you're just laying in amongst the groceries in the back of the thing because, or you're falling asleep and there's like a section of the road that turns up and you're home. Just like one of those little kid memories. Everybody's got those. We all have something like that, like falling asleep in the back of the car and you wake up, oh, almost home.
Yep. My dog does
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There's this one sharp left-hand turn that right off the highway, and it's like, oh, it's time to wake up.
Yeah,
We're almost home.
That was a 77 Impala station wagon. Yeah, that was
Oh.
Those weren't small.
Yeah, and they had the angular doors, the back door that went down below the bumper and it went up into the top. Thought that was a cool little
Did
amenity.
you have the way back, the rear facing seat?
The tail gunner? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was the jam right there when you were a little kid. I tried to get in one of those when I was in college, and I was like, I don't know. This was much more fun when I was 5.
Yeah, that was the seat where you flipped off the trucks behind you.
Right.
Trouble and did this.
You know what the way back in Ireland was? You know that little cubby that's behind the back seat in the window on the VW Bug? There's usually 3 or 4 kids in there. I was one of them. That's what you're doing right now.
Getting carbon monoxide poisoning because the engine's right
sitting
below
on
you.
top of the motor. Yeah, basically.
It really is a wonder that any of us survived. I mean, because I told the story about my first car memory, which was crawling around in the luggage hold of my dad's Corvette when I was like 2. I'm like, yeah, we were going out running errands with my dad and my uncle, and I'm just like, there were no seat belts. You would put a baby in the bassinet in the
Yeah,
back
behind the seat.
shelf. Yeah, whatever. It didn't matter. So
Yeah, it is amazing. And for as bad as the roads where I'm from, I'm amazed that any of us lived, honestly. And I learned to drive. That's another thing. I learned to drive on those roads, narrow ass country roads. They're like maybe like I don't know, 15 feet across, and kind of cambered because that's the way they weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's you learn a few things about driving in the elements in one of those. Yeah, big, and it was I think was the one I took out first. Was like it was an Oldsmobile Cutlass station wagon. It was the one I learned to drive on. Yeah, big. I'll take a casket. Nephew, that's basically how you go. Dad would go to dealership, and it's like he's thinking, gets his tape measure out, standard issue, Batesville. He's going, okay, about 100 inches there. He's just sizing up. Can he put a casket in it? That's the only reason we would get station wagons. Give me your longest one. I'm like, I'm thinking, if he were alive today, it's like, would he gone with like a Ford Flex? Like, cause that's like, cause it was like economy, but stretch. Yeah, I always wonder what the alt car would have been.
and I mean, it's not too different than we just bought a 5-passenger crossover, much to partly my shame, but we took a station wagon to measure the opening for whether our biggest dog could get in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
go to the need. Build for the need.
we're not going to make money off of my biggest dog being able to get into the back of it. In fact, if my biggest dog needs to get into the back of it, we're going to be losing money because we're probably going to the vet.
Yeah, do we cover what on your earlier shows? You have what kind of dog?
I have 3. We have a
biggest. I'm talking about the biggest, the utility
biggest
dog.
is a 100-pound lab pit mix.
Lab pit. That's some solid head and shoulders right there.
Yeah. He's a big boy. He is 33 inches at the top of his head. So yeah, he's
got the pack of Franks on the back of his head.
Yeah, I mean the problem is when we got him, we had 2 dogs, both of whom were 25 pounds. So even as he is still a 100-pound dog, he thinks he's a 25-pound dog, which means he thinks he can do things like walk on the back of the couch and hear everything. So yeah.
Adorable and painful.
Painful. Yes, he's a good old man, but he is There's always a lot going on with him.
Did you go straight into the service out of high school, or did you go?
My grades were awful. I did not care. Like this is when you kids would have like some sort of depression or ADD, or both. Pretty much the pack you get from growing up around formaldehyde and everything that comes out of the ground upstate. So I just joined the Air Force straight out. They gave me a good gig. I joined because they said, hey, this tech school here is in Denver. And I'm like, I was skiing. I had like this little place I learned to ski. I'm thinking, I could ski in the Rockies. It's in Denver, Colorado. I could go there. So I basically took a job based on the tech school being in Denver in ski season. So I ended up working on cruise missiles for B-52s for 4 years. And that took me to Washington State, where I got a car that was not... I know you hate the bit, so I'm gonna keep going back to it.
So you got a car, but were you like?
We're just talking about some of the things I drove there. That right there, the thing to the left, that would be carries the whole nuclear missile package you put under the wing, and it also will put in the load package into the bomb bay of a B-52. But that thing, custom built, I think for Boeing by a couple of Teradyne suppliers. That was like, I think they were like $5.5 million a copy because they're all like custom built. And I could drive that, but I'd go home on leave my first year and Dad wouldn't let me touch the car. I'm like, Air Force has let me drive missiles around, not fast, but, under things that have to go kill Russians. Yeah, and towing around weapon systems with that. That's a Coleman right there, which has swivel wheels on the back. Oh my God, the turning radius. It crab steers. That thing was so much fun. They had like, the lever off to the side. So much fun to drive. But the other one that was the first one you showed was the best one. The Jammer. That's the MHU 83D/E. That thing, you can see how the arms slide out to the side, so it goes around a bomb. That thing on ice It'll get up to like 20 miles an hour, but you get that thing on flat ice on a side runway or a stub where they park the planes.
We're drifting.
Oh, it is the ultimate drift steer machine, and those are kind of pricey per copy. It's the lowest forklift you're going to ever find. So I got to drive those. Like, you know, I was your wheelman on base. If there's anything that could be, you could have fun driving it, I was going to find a way to have fun driving it. Whether the Air Force issued it or not. But, you know, those are 3 other vehicles that I was hanging out, other than the numerous Ford Econolines and the Grumman step vans. We called that one the milk truck. That had like a steering wheel, like it was like a yard across, you know, and not so much play. It was like 3 volleyball games going on. There was so much play. It was just keep the thing straight on the road out to the weapons storage area. It was comical.
Just Popeye forearms.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, no. There was no resistance. It's just like I'm saying. You're just like, oh, whoa. It's like you're on the ocean. You know. It's just nothing. You're not getting any play. Like you hit the rudder, give it 3 spins, and it might respond and give you like 2 degrees of play off to the side. But Air Force maintenance. The 1976 Grumman step van. Amazing. Low power, no power. And the suspension just have you doing the hey.
So this is all interesting to me because of the joy in your voice recounting driving all of these ridiculous vehicles. But what I got from Connor was, but what I got from Connor is, yeah, Matt's cool with public transit and walking everywhere now. Like I'm trying to connect the two, how one goes from the one place to the other place.
Okay, well, so that takes you to, I'll give you like, how many more guests should we give him on the car? I mean, that's the question, because that one's set up.
He's 2 in, right?
I'm 2 in. I only got 1 more.
So ask me anything. I'm going to give you a little hint. It's European.
It's European. Oh, it's European, and it ties directly into why you are cool with public transit now. My first guess. Connor knows what my first guess is going to be.
I know. He gave you a little bit of preface to, you know, what your preferences are. Honestly.
Let me see. You had a rabbit.
No.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's 3. That's 3.
That's 3.
I did narrow down the continent for you. You did get basically the year, and you got the manufacturer.
Did you have a Fox? Because a Fox would have. I saw a Volkswagen yesterday, which I hadn't seen in forever.
What?
Yeah, at breakfast. There was a dude there with a straight up. It was just pristine Volkswagen.
There it is, dude.
Scirocco. Oh.
Yeah, that'd be the whip. That's about as close as to it. I could not find a picture of my exact animal. That was the winner is the 1980 Volkswagen Scirocco S model, which was kicking like, I think, 93 horse. But yeah, the Air Force basically helps out with your car addiction. They give you places to work on it on base, and that you know, they have the auto hobby shop. That's what they call that. Do body work in there, and you could take care of your own stuff, which was kind of cool, because they're not paying you enough in the military. They were paying you dirt, so you had to buy something affordable. So that at the time was a 6-year-old car, and I did not know how to drive stick, even though I grew up in upstate New York. So I liked the Scirocco, and I realized, oh, it's 5-speed. I better do something about learning this at the car dealership on the way out. So I taught, we do stupid. Those are stupid things. Another stupid thing we do. Midweek, I had a friend come in from Las Vegas I hadn't seen in 20 years. We went to school in Nevada, northern Nevada, and he came in. Wednesday was just kind of a blur. He's very good at putting away the sauce, and I was trying my level best to keep up with him. And Thursday, I was just worthless at work. I'm just, you know, and I'm 56. I don't have the stamina I had at 20. You know, I'm falling apart.
Yeah, no, you
2
no.
days. It takes 2 days to do this. I'll have a little bit of Kentucky on a Friday night, but not this week. No, I'm still recovering from Wednesday. That's what.
Gen X cannot party on school nights anymore. We are
That's
past
it.
that point.
I
We
was
are
social.
past that.
It was 1 or 2. He.
Here's the problem. We all still think we're 30. We are not 30.
You're not 30.
You're being generous. 30? If my wife was listening to this, she was like, "Nah, keep going. This might be another like another decade on top of that."
Yeah, we're just falling apart on the inside. I can't run this thing like I used to. But yeah, it's just like that car. I beat the crap out of that Scirocco from minute one. Drove it off the lot. That thing was just popping. And we're doing the same thing to our bodies now. We don't learn. We're just big dummies, a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a Scirocco, which
Mhm.
that was today's bad idea back, 40
Even
years
in
ago.
1981.
Dude, I had so much fun. Drove so fast. Got so many tickets with that car. There was this town outside of base. The cops just saw me coming and like light it up. And it's like I had the radar detector. I think it was actually a radar magnifier because I got in Washington State 11 speeding tickets. I was there for 3 years. And back in those days, Olympia, Washington, the capital there, did not talk to Albany, New York, which is where I had my license from. So because the state capitals didn't talk to each other, did not get my license taken away for all those infractions. Paid all tickets.
That was my question: is how'd you manage to get away with 11 tickets?
Yeah,
But yeah,
multi-state the computers didn't talk back then. So, I was driving like a complete tool on the roads of Washington and Idaho and Oregon and California and New York. Every place I went, I was driving entirely too fast, entirely too rude, and I'm the guy that you go, "What the hell's that guy doing?" I was that guy, playing that thing about as close to loose as I could because I was just on base. You're tied down to the step van. You're tied down to the slow moving bomb truck, and you can't move very fast, and everybody's watching you. But the second you get off base, lose your damn mind. And you got this little four banger with like what I used to call vectored thrust, this front wheel drive. You could do a lot of stuff with it, and I drove like I wanted to die. So,
George, is Matt allowed to ask you about your disdain for all things Volkswagen Audi Group, VAG products?
um, so I don't know. I will say this: there is a 20-year-old NDA that was signed that keeps me from going to. I mean, whatever. It's 20 years old. I don't know if they care anymore, and I don't know if this will ever reach an audience uh, to which they will care. But I will.
Well, let me put it this way: if we get a cease and desist, we know this is working.
Yeah,
there you go.
that's pretty much it. That's
Here's your
pretty much
test
it.
rat.
I owned the. Let's just say I owned the car.
Jet.
I will not say which car it was, but I owned it.
Jetta.
No, it was much more expensive than that. I drove a Jetta a lot
Phaeton?
when I owned this car. That is the problem. Um, Owned it for 18 months. Was in the shop 22 times, averaging 1 week per time. There was a situation, all sorts of random stuff, including my wife getting locked into the car because the power locks froze twice. The car was once bricked because they sent a firmware update that was in German instead of in English. And when they loaded it on the car, the English speaking car said, I don't know what to do. And nothing worked except for the dome light of the car.
Das ist not
Uh,
gut Auto.
Das ist not gut Auto. Um, and some more, even more expensive fixes were required, and in the end, we had to take extreme measures to no longer own that car.
Mm.
Because-
So that much maintenance. I mean, I always go Phaeton. Did you buy a like really used Phaeton?
No, we bought a new car that was. I think this was actually pre-Phaeton. This was
What was
2003.
W8?
I wanted a W8. I wanted a W8, but
Ooh,
this car did not come with a W8. It had a six-cylinder. So now we're playing Guess George's
This is
problem car.
fun.
This was actually my wife's problem car. Um, I wanted
That doesn't work like that.
the
It's
choice
still your
was.
problem
in
car.
for penny and for
This
pound.
is true.
Secret ring club, baby.
There you go. This is um when it came down to it, we were freshly married. We had been married for 2 months. We had just gotten our second dog.
Mhm.
Um,
2 dogs in.
we had two dogs. We had a 80-pound lab and a 60-pound Sheltie Chow mix. Um, I was pushing for the W8 car because it had more power. That would have been a mistake. She wanted the other car because it had a better nameplate, but they were basically the same car. Uh,
Okay. So Audi's knockoff. I'm thinking of what it is. God. What's your guess, man? I'm thinking
I'm
Passat.
not. I got to stay Switzerland on this one because I know.
You know what it is. So
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know what it is. You're not going to tell me. Okay.
Like, no. I didn't.
I understand your
I
pain.
wasn't expecting checkmate in this conversation. So.
Well, no, we both own Volkswagens, so we're in a club where we can talk openly and cry openly because there are pains that go with it. Most involve the cooling system.
That's right.
I found that Scirocco. Oh, well, my favorite MacGyver moments, and you basically learn if you own a Volkswagen, you learn how to fix stuff post haste. I mean, toot sweet. You're going to be on the road and something's going to break. I'm in Nevada. I drove that Scirocco from Spokane to Reno. First couple years I had that Volkswagen, I had a job fixing ATMs in South Lake Tahoe. So I had to drive across the flats in the desert. And I'm in Washoe Valley, straight line. It's like 4 miles of like immaculate 4 lanes, and everybody's hauling ass. Because you can see the cops. I'm doing probably 85. The VDO is just kicking up there. I'm driving to the edge. I want to make this appointment, get back to go to school. So I'm going, and all of a sudden I hear, and what looks like lime jello pops out from a slot under the hood and hits the windshield
Oh.
like I took out a gremlin. I'm like, oh man. So, and I'm like, it's a and then you got steam like a pope was elected. You pull over to the side, and I'm giving a couple seconds to chill out. And if you're in Nevada, you carry coolant and you carry water. You carry both because you want a nice mix. You don't know, you want to go with the heavy pour, the light pour. You're ready for all coolant situations if you drive in the high desert. So pop the hood, and I look, and where the green ooze is coming from is the return line across the top going into the top of the radiator. So, it's a hose that's like that big around, and it's got a slice basically up the seam. It just popped along the seam.
Oh, yeah.
And I had my toolkit in an ammo box, which had crappy tools. I had a slot cup. Back in those days, they actually paid off in slot machines. They had nickel slots, quarter slots, and they give you a cup to hold your money in, right? So you had this plastic cup. And if you're poor in Reno, that's what you ate your cereal out of. So like it's a slot cup stolen from the casino, took him home. That was your dish set. So it'd be like slots of fun on the outside, or Harold's Casino, loosest slots in town. So this is your breakfast bowl. So I had one of those in the back because I think I had some Cheerios in it earlier on the way to work. Because everybody eats in the car because all the miles are long. So I take this out. I got a surgical kit I stole from a B-52 in the back, and I cracked that open, and I got like a surgical blade about that long. I got surgical tape, and I got a slot cup. And I take the slot cup and I slice it like an apple, like this, all the way down there, and I make it along the spine at the top of the return, and I take some surgical tape on the outside of that, and that got me the 6 miles into Carson City, so I could go to the Auto Palace there and buy whatever the hell they had for a return line. Luckily, they had a hose that fit, and I fixed it in the parking lot and onto my appointment. I don't think I was maybe 10 minutes late on that one, but like one of my favorite MacGyver fixes I ever pulled out of my ass. I was so proud of myself sitting on the side of a very windy straight road, just going.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard the most VW story that ever been told.
That's what it is.
That's,
In a day before cell phones, learn or die.
That's
In the desert.
In the desert, yes.
In the desert.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you didn't have a car that was full of complex mechanicals and computers like I did.
I don't know how.
So I'm curious. Are you how many skeletons, human skeletons, do you think are in the desert with like VW emblems next to them?
There's a few unwise travelers who chose that particular approach.
Cue rattlesnakes in the background.
So coyotes off in the distance just eyeing you.
So just picking at your pain of owning a 80s VW, was it really so bad that it turned you off from automobiles? I mean, was that the deal?
So that one died, and I hated to go to car dealerships. I had an awful experience with my dad. They tried to get me into a Plymouth Shadow, and I was like, no, that's affordable. Dad's like, it's affordable. Dad would be measuring it up for if you could put a casket in the back. I'm like, no, Dad, I'm not going to let you co-sign on this piece of trash. I'm not getting a Plymouth Shadow. So I just walked out of the deal, and he was like, what are you doing? So I think I walked in, had such a bad experience with the car dealer that I went to the Saturn had just come out. So I got like one of the first SLs, and it boring as hell. The most vanilla car you could ever buy. But
excellent dealer experience, though.
Excellent dealer experience, and climbed like a goat. It had a lot of GM power underneath there, but boring and tough to get at. It had a long windup. It's going to be like 0 to 60 in make a cake. It's a long windup, but once you're there, smooth cruising, easy, and no maintenance. But I realized that paying for that and the insurance on a new car, thinking I can't do this anymore, so I gave up the car because by that time I'd moved near campus and I was walking and everything, and I'm realizing I actually have money to pay for school now because paying for cars, so I didn't have to do that. And I'm realizing I was working to keep the car alive, and I didn't like the fixing and the driving as much. So when we moved from Nevada to Boston, I'm like, we're just going to drive this one until it dies. My wife had a Volkswagen Fox that had constant cooling problems, like thermostat, radiator fan. It's like, who's their supplier? I mean, does Bosch not really put the name in as like Bosch with like an umlaut that I'm not seeing? Because it's knockoff stuff at best. If I can disagree with or agree with you completely on VAG, their suppliers were falling apart. On the coolant game, lost. I put the guy up the street, A to Z Automotive, on Washington and Com. If he ever sees this, I put your kids through school, buddy. Because I was up there so damn much. I like anything I would earn, and Connor, it was early days of advertising. I was doing like catalog design. I was making dog wages, nothing, beer money. And she's going to law school, and I'm just trying to put money aside, trying to just stay alive. We're eating ramen. Ramen is currency. Like I was stealing food, dumpster diving and putting all my money into this kid's college fund up the street for a kid I'm never going to meet. The guy who's fixing my car constantly. I'm like, out. The second I get a chance, it died up in Somerville at a friend's house, and I took my tools out of it, took the T home, and I said, Volunteers of America, come pick it up. And, signed over the deed. Haven't bought a car since 1999.
I mean, that's a nice trick if you live a place with decent public transit, which
I picked the place to live. I picked the place to live based on me not having to own a car.
I own 3 cars. I love owning a car. I honestly wish that this place that we live allowed for more car independence.
Yeah. Oh, I think your roads would be better. I mean, to feed
everything would be better.
Yeah. Like Connor, we live near the Tobin Bridge. The both of us. It's like it splits our world. they're thinking of replacing it now. If you saw this in the recent news, they're thinking of replacing this. This bridge takes 80,000 cars a day from the north side of Boston into Boston proper, way up in the air. It's like 200 feet up in the air, really overbuilt, so seagoing freighters could get under it to go to like 3 places that they could get to. So of the 80,000 vehicles that go over that, a handful of them are the 111 bus with 7,000 people that take daily trips over that thing in the bus. Imagine if the 7,000 people were driving on that bridge. If that was the way they had to get into town. It's like that's the way it looks like. Anybody who loves cars should be advocating for public transportation.
Well, I mean,
this came up on our last podcast too. We kind of went deep on this. I'm going to switch gears because we're kind of getting into our kind of window. I'm about to post a link in the chat. It's from our autocross experience. I'm going to tee it up, and I'm going to have you voice over what was going through your head through this whole thing.
Okay.
So in my attempt to bring Matt back to the automotive fold, he'd heard me yammer on for years about this autocross thing. What is this autocross thing? And last month, I finally convinced him, hey, why don't you go ride shotgun with me? So, I pick him up way early in the morning. We drive out. We're having a grand time. I had said to him initially when we got there, said, let me get a couple of runs in because I've got some fresh tires. I don't know how the cars behave. I haven't been doing much recently. I'm not particularly fast. I'm in an E46 autocrossing, which isn't particularly fast. And this is my second run. As we were staging, we're coming up, I glanced over and I happened to notice that Matt had put down the visor on his helmet. Now, there was a brief moment in my head where I went, that's probably not a great idea. Because if it kind of gets a little wobbly through all this, which is autocross, so there's lots of, I don't have the most settled car in the world. And he starts to not feel so hot. Where's it going to go?
Dude, I thought about that, and I'd rather clean up a helmet than your car.
Fair.
Dude, so it's going to go... I'm going to get the pasty face. It's going to go the Kyle Kinane sunflower. Just...
Yeah, it's all over the inside. Whoop, all over the inside.
It's a lot easier to clean a helmet.
I think I'd worked pretty hard on trying to persuade you, hey, you can co-drive with me. We'll get some helmets. We'll start doing this. Planning weekends. It'll be fun. And what actually happened on the day?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, is what I'm going to say. It's a lot of fun. And it did, when I say solidify something in my mind, it was, I never want to be a rally navigator. Never. Never.
So that got crossed off the bucket list that morning, huh?
I have the utmost respect for those guys who are basically putting up with somebody else's bad decisions, and they got a front row seat, and all the vestibular challenges that I faced in my 1 mile, they're doing over many miles on roads that weren't as good as the one we were on that fateful day. So, anyway, are you looking? Okay. So here we are. I'm giving the thumbs up to the Joker who's off to the side, who's saying, let's go. And Connor's telling me, tell me, shut the fuck up. Dude, because he's getting his head in the game. He's ready to make some massive...
I was making a Bugs Bunny reference, but...
Yeah, be very quiet. Be very quiet. But he's getting ready to pop, and this is about me ready to look at that corpulent bastard in such a nice striped shirt. Vertical works better when you're a heavy guy. Vertical stripes.
Thank you.
So here I am. And I realize, see, I'm already smiling, but I'm sliding. And I'm giggling because it is fun to slide across there. God, I'm seeing if you're pushing or pulling on the wheel right now. But this is into the first slalom. And I'm starting to listen to the chirp underneath you. They make you walk the course out here, so I was very aware of where things were. There's the hard. That's what I'm like, oh, God. This is a long slalom right here, and I'm thinking I'm a little woozy right here. I'm thinking, let me grab it. Look at that. Look at my left arm. Let me grab that seatbelt. Press it, pull it. Oh dear God! And this is where I'm thinking, okay, I got maybe a third of this mile left. because he's going to do a hard corner here, and then he's going to go into the last slalom before they shoot you across the top and they get out of this. So there's the long corner, and now we're going into that last quarter mile slalom, back and forth. Whoa. And this is, he had asked me earlier, and you look like you're about to puke. So we get through there, and he asked me earlier, if I change my religion.
Nope.
And I said, no, I am still, you have not changed me into the church of the car. I'm still
running.
I came up
That's
with,
pretty wild.
And I'm slow.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So this is where we're doing a little decompression. I'm giggling. I mean, there's an upside. But I will tell you right now, I have the vestibular system of a 56-year-old man who's not been on many roller coasters. So that, and I think it's, you get to be old.
You got a second, even though it's good call.
Yeah, look at the fact
So
that
here,
I have a helmet.
This is the point where I'm thinking, hey, you know,
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm not that fast. Maybe you should ride with some of these other guys. You know, they feel like, oh, well, it's really like to be on like a fast car. Like, you know, the Miatas are just unstoppable.
Oh, there's so many nice cars there. So many nice cars.
So they had go jump in one of those, and you were like, no, I'm good. Bye.
And I did. And I had a very nice tuna melt in town. Ice chai, because I'd walk 2 miles to get into Ayer, Massachusetts, across from the commuter rail station. But I was very, very happy to sit there with a cool beverage in air conditioning and just go, yeah.
That was a bad idea.
That was a bad idea. But did you see the Porsche that was on the side there? His car number was 404.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've seen this car. You know what I'm talking about. It's like a violet colored. Everything's a 911 derivative.
Guess what he does for a living?
I think the license plate was not Fund 404. Yeah, I'm gonna say. But everybody up there who makes the trip up to that old airbase, everybody up there is like the nerdiest guys you're ever gonna meet. They're so into the numbers. There's just big old brains. And if I can respect anything about the culture in Boston, is it's, well, how can I make this go 100th of a second faster? And everybody's, working on, they probably still got their Texas Instruments calculators out there trying to figure out how they can do it, but they'll make their own stuff. They'll buy the best stuff they can find. And they pretty much know the formula to make it go.
Matt, how would you epitomize car culture up here in the Northeast?
Quiet. Utilitarian. I don't think there's much show. The people who are showing stuff off are new money and silly. We have these things called winters, and we have this problem with not a lot of storage, because storage is really expensive.
Do you know how we show in the Northeast? School stickers. That's how it shows.
Yeah, that's our flex.
That's your flex.
That's the flex.
Like it goes to the most expensive school.
Yeah,
it's kind
and you've got a 20-year-old Outback with God knows how many miles on it, but there's the Ivy League stickers are on it.
Yeah. And the flex here, if you come from old money, you're driving like probably a 78 Mercedes diesel with one window that's got knocked out, and you've got a garbage bag over the plywood that you put over it. Thrifty. That's what I would say.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That is kind of the opposite of here. Well, no, if you come from old money, you probably are still driving a 78 Mercedes diesel wagon, but it is the most pristine 78. But you've owned it from new, but it is pristine. If you come from new money, as a town with at any one time 4 professional sports teams, yeah, you've just got the loudest, most obnoxious Italian thing.
Yeah. I mean, Poppy drove around. He had I think a yellow Lamborghini Gallardo, and that's like he's the kind of guy. We have them here, but like I'm saying, it's not like the big flex is no flex. Very quiet. Everything's a sleeper. You don't want to broadcast, and even though the troopers here are asleep as well. I mean, you could drive like a complete idiot here comparatively. Another thing, I do Zipcar. That's another thing I do up here is I don't drive my own cars. And I do drive I'll rent an hourly of somebody else's. So if I got to go pick something up at Home Depot, which is rare that I go, like 2 or 3 times a year, I'll get something that I can't carry on public transportation. I'll rent a car. So I'll try to get something decent. They were like the first ones to have like Imprezas that you could drive that, they should have had a governor on them, but they didn't. And you can do a lot we have great riverways here. I mean, Connor, we've talked about the chicane on Starro Drive. At 11 o'clock at night, our roads are amazing. If you're 1 o'clock in the morning, they're supreme because there are so many curves they put in the 40s and 50s and 60s for these little the legitimate carways that go along the rivers and through parks, and they're gorgeous and they're fun to drive on. And if I get my car Vice, if I gotta like scratch that, it's go the methadone clinic version of your heroin addiction. I'll get my taste on nights like that when I go out alone on somebody else's car who's gonna pay for it and insure it and do all the other stuff. That's when I get my fix.
This is interesting because you're like a 15-year-old car guy, but in the body of a middle-aged man. Like, you look at the stuff, you understand the stuff, you don't do the stuff, except on rare occasions when mom lets you, which is I need to go to Home Depot and I need to buy some 2x8s, so I'm gonna get something with the that'll let me put it in the trunk, and then I'm gonna see how fast I can make it through these little chicanes, which is, let me tell you, Mini Cooper is the best. It straightens out every corner. It straightens out
small car
every corner.
Such a blast.
And look, old habits die hard. Like, there's that family thing again. You open the car and the first thing you do is you pull out a tape measure to see what you can fit in the back of it. It's just history repeating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of go with like something that's going to be a long hatch. You're going to get the Mazda C5 because they've taken away all the trucks and vans. So you got to think, what's got that fold down 40/60 back seat? And what's how I could probably put 2x4s right at the middle. Right there in the center console, because it's an automatic. Boom. Who cares if it hits the front of the stereo? Who cares? Yeah, it's got 8 feet in the middle. Not all that hang out the back. Who cares? It's 3 miles.
Yeah. My last car was a M5, and what we found out is that you can put a 8-foot 2x6 through the back on top of the center console and close the trunk. So I literally built the gate out of stuff that I brought home from Home Depot in the back of an M5. Like, you could put the 6-foot stuff diagonally across and the 8-foot straight through the middle.
Yep.
We call those design restrictions.
Call those what?
Design restrictions.
Honestly, if people built things based on that, I think we'd have better car choices. Just to have, like, if you had a small truck that just had a slot for 4x8 panels a foot deep, you wouldn't need to build crappy beds on trucks. You could just build something that went up the middle.
A big mail slot.
Yeah. I mean, the trucks here are so stupid big. And it all goes back to the chicken tax. You guys probably have talked about that. You guys are car guys. You understand, like, why trucks are so big and, why our protectionist trade policies have kept us in huge cars. You guys know about the chicken tax, right?
I do. I don't know, Connor. Do you? Are you? So basically, the long and short of it is, in the 70s, when Japan really came up as an automotive power, Detroit was pretty much like, you can't let them come after our trucks, because they were starting to eat America's lunch in cars.
Yeah.
And so there was a tax put on importing private trucks that was so incredibly insurmountable that to today, most foreign trucks are actually made in America. Like, Nissan is in Tennessee, Toyota's in Texas.
Yep.
But, like, that's the reason the United States, the Subaru Brat had rear-facing seats. In no other place did they have rear-facing seats. They put the rear-facing seats in the Brat to say that it wasn't a truck, it was a car, because it had 4 seats.
There are reasons.
And there's stuff like that. But
reasons.
that there was a meme that went around. I know I posted it on Instagram, but it's if you look at a typical just K truck from like the tiniest Isuzu K truck
Yeah,
from Japan and the
exactly
full
it.
size F-150 to have the exact same bed length.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean our trucks are huge for a Tacoma of today is the same size as an F-150 from 2000. And now a Tacoma is a small truck or something
Yeah.
like a Dodge Maverick, which is probably about the size of a Dakota, which was the largest compact truck you could buy 20 years ago. And a Maverick is like, oh my God, it's this genre busting tiny thing.
And you can still
But
park one of those Nissan trucks in the bed
right,
from the 70s.
right.
Bonkers. How big they've got. It's stupid how big they've got. And it all has to do with like, oh, and the other thing is like, you get commercial frame brakes. Like their cafe standards and certain standards don't apply to trucks that are at a certain height. So if the frame that it's sitting on is, up that much higher than standard, you can say it's commercial frame and you get tax deductions for that for the build and for the purchaser. So it's all subsidized madness that kills more people on the highways than it needs to.
Have friends who bought a Navigator for that because they would get a tax break for buying a $6,000 vehicle, a 6,000 pound vehicle, through their business versus something actually smaller.
And with that, gentlemen, we got to wind this up. George, I want to make sure you've had an opportunity to do a dick joke. We can't let this feel like that's going to have your fix. Thank you both. That wraps up episode 5. We'll do it again soon. Matt, we'll have to figure out another excuse to bring you back at some point.
Yeah, I live to serve.
Thank you.
All right,
take care.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.